as you were mentioning earlier with Aaron Danielson and also Lee Keltner and all these other names of people who've been murdered in these riots. It just goes on and on and on because we have actual domestic terrorists who've been running our streets largely unchecked now for many, many months. And many of us have been wondering, when's it going to end? And it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. We've seen people who've burned down our cities, who've looted our stores, who've destroyed the social fabric that we used to enjoy here in America. And now we're supposed to believe that these same leftists who've covered up for Antifa and BLM all these months, that stealing an election, that's just too low for them, that they'll burn down your city, beat Trump supporters, elderly people over the head with baseball bats, but stealing an election, stuffing some ballots, that's just a step too far.
Right.
So looking ahead now for Republicans, do you think that they really need to focus on this election that is right now, that's going on right now, it's being litigated, the November 3rd election, instead of looking ahead to 2024 and perhaps we'll get him next time? Do we really need to focus on the here and now and the threat that's facing us right in our eyes?
Well, I think we have a problem within the GOP, within the Republican Party. We have evidence. I mean, they say, okay, well, there's no evidence of voter fraud. Really, here's video. Here's video from Atlanta of them pulling suitcases. Gabrielle Sterling in Atlanta said, oh, those aren't suitcases, but you have video evidence of them at 8:30 when they told everyone to go home, pulling out suitcases, and then all of a sudden just inserting all of these ballots that seemingly came out of nowhere with no one watching. So there's video evidence there. So then they say, okay, well, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Okay, well, then Giuliani comes with eyewitnesses, with countless eyewitnesses, spending multiple days in Arizona, in Michigan, talking to eyewitnesses, expert witnesses, giving testimony to the fact that they actually witnessed, and you also have statistical evidence, that they witnessed voter fraud. They say, okay, well, maybe there's widespread evidence. There's not enough evidence to show that there was enough voter fraud to overturn the election. And then you have, you have that Edison report that showed that it could have been possibly 2.7 million Trump votes that were dropped. You have all these statistical anomalies. You have all these statistical anomalies that show it was basically impossible for Joe Biden to win because he got less than Hillary Clinton in every single metropolitan area except for the ones that he needed. I think it was Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and he won in those precincts by the exact amount of votes. In Nevada, Biden won by just 34,000 votes. It turns out that the Trump campaign has evidence that 40,000 people voted twice. So you're telling me that within that margin, it's just a coincidence that Biden won by almost the exact amount that he needed in Nevada? So that's statistical evidence. And so when you show them that statistical evidence that, yeah, there might actually be evidence to overturn this election, well, then you have Alice Stewart, who's a CNN commentator, saying, okay, well, can we just stop talking about Stop the Steal? Let's just stop talking about it. And to this day, they keep on saying, oh, these are baseless allegations of voter fraud. No, these aren't baseless. We have eyewitnesses. We have statistical evidence. We have trends. We have all of this stuff, and they're not willing to admit any of it. So I think that that shows that they're worried. I think that shows that they're not really prepared for the fact that they might not actually pull this thing off. But the Republican Party is in a really interesting place right now because if Trump does not pull this off, the Republican Party is dead. The Republican Party was already dying, and Trump brought it back to life. And without Trumpism, the Republican Party is really screwed. We're already seeing all of these Republicans saying, okay, well, I think it's time to accept the L. I think it's time for us to just accept that Trump isn't going to pull this off, and instead we have to focus on the Senate. Well, what are they doing in the Senate? In the Senate, they're voting on Senate Bill 386, which basically is a green card giveaway to people in India, to foreigners in India and China, when we're witnessing record job losses for Americans, and they're giving these green cards to Indians and basically coming and taking Americans' jobs. And this was a Mike Lee, he's supposed to be a stalwart constitutional conservative. Mike Lee put this bill on the floor, and they voted on it by unanimous consent, meaning they did not even debate it on the floor. They just said, yep, that sounds good. Anyone object? Nope, okay. I mean, if that's going to be the future of the GOP, then I don't really know what it means to be Republican anymore. And Trump is the only person stopping that from happening. And so a GOP without Trump is basically going to be the same spineless, weak, pathetic GOP that we had in 2012 and that was not able to win elections and that was basically going into irrelevancy.